What's going on, everybody? This is Afro Think Tank. White man explains white culture. He psychoanalyzes white culture. He does a great job in questioning the legitimacy of white culture. He questions the legitimacy of white, of being white, of the idea of whiteness. He questions it utilizing history and facts. You see, this guy's light-skinned, all right? He's light-skinned. He's a human being. And he understands these are the kind of human beings, hue-colored beings, men who have a hue to their skin, light-hued skin, human beings, questioning the demonic, savage, barbaric ideology of whiteness, a thing without anything, emptiness, hollowness, white, lacking of color, lacking of light, because light actually is lacking light because it's the absence of all color and spectrums, right? So let this man cook, because this man is definitely gonna cook, all right? And he's not gonna put any cranberries in the potato salad, I promise you. And if he does, I'll take full responsibility. Anyway, you tell me what you guys think in the comment section. It's Afro Think Tank. Learn something, teach something. I'm out.
So remember how Italians, Jewish folks, and us Celts were emphatically not white for a long time, and then we were just kind of quietly given and adopted whiteness? Remember how all this demonstrates how whiteness is a weird, very recent cult with an arbitrary moving line of who gets let in, invented just to keep poor people from recognizing one another as allies and prevent us from organizing effectively for a better world? All right, now imagine that this cult of whiteness decides to let Latino people in. They realize that a lot of Latinos are lighter skinned than a lot of Italians, so Latinos are now officially in the club, actually white. Then, imagine that the white supremacists start using Latino liberation struggles as examples of white culture. They are proudly referencing the Zapatistas and General Santa Anna and Simon Bolivar as white heritage, using those struggles as justification for their ongoing subjugation and oppression of Black and Asian people. How would we all feel about that? How would that land? Hold that feeling in mind. Trump's nominee for U.S. Assistant Secretary of International Relations is a guy named Jeremy Carl, and he's afraid that white culture and heritage are being erased. Recently, Senator Chris Murphy asked him to define specifically what types of white culture Mr. Carl feels are at risk and being erased, and Mr. Carl said this.
Tell me how you define white identity and what you think is being erased about white identity.
The sort of Scotch-Irish military culture and certain, pride that went with that. That would be one example. Obviously, you could have sub-elements of that culture. You could have Italians, you could have Irish.
The fact that these are the first and only examples of whiteness that come to mind for this supremacist is really, really important, because when those events happened that he's referencing, and for most of U.S. history, none of those ethnicities that he's giving as examples of whiteness were considered white. You were either white or Italian, white or a Celt. In fact, we, because I'm very much a Celt, fought, bled, and gave our lives fighting against the exact systems of supremacy and colonization that Mr. Carl is now using our struggles against to try and justify, excuse, and expand. We were and are fighting the English, who are brutal colonial occupiers of Celtic lands. The English are the ideological ancestor of the concept of whiteness as a divisive class construct to subjugate and control. And when we were fighting against the English colonial rule, we were absolutely not considered white. That was when we were most not white. We were emphatically anti-white. But now, our anti-white resistance is the example, definition, and epitome of whiteness. We fought and we lost, so all Celtic lands are, to this day, under brutal white colonial rule by the English. We lost so completely that you've probably never heard of my ancestral homeland, Cairnau or Cornwall. It's right underneath Wales. 16% of Cairnau is owned by the English Crown as a duchy. The Crown rents Cairnauic land to Cairnauic people. The Crown steals $30 million per year from Cairnau. That's more than 10% of our entire GDP, while 1 in 3 Cairnauic children live in dire poverty today. That's not my people being naturally poor. That's the English Crown stealing bread from the mouths of Cornish children right now, the same way they did when they starved our Irish kin and called it a potato famine. They never stopped doing that. It's happening now. They just refined it to the point where it's less obvious. So this is not history. This is very much the present day. And as a Celt, I find nothing more despicable than white using our struggle against their white supremacy as a justification for their fucking white supremacy. Mr. Carl has no idea what my ancestors and my Scottish and Irish and Welsh kin were fighting against. They were and are fighting against you, Mr. Carl. So keep my people's names out of your fucking mouth. My Kernoic ancestors marched on London to overthrow the English crown, came very close to succeeding, but we lost. We were brutally colonized, we were enslaved and forced to destroy our own homeland. Our language was made illegal and nearly wiped out. Our economy was destroyed to the point where my recent ancestors had to flee to find a better life, and in doing so become colonizers themselves. Celtic people are the most powerful case study in the cycle of colonial violence. In under a century, we went from victims to perpetrators of the same crimes against humanity. Celts were some of the most vicious and horrible perpetrators of what was done in Africa and the Americas, with our holy indigenous mother tongues still dying on our lips. We truly did become white in an unspeakable betrayal of our ancestors, our indigeneity, and our souls. To begin healing and to start to regain the honor that our ancestors threw away when they embodied the wounds of colonization, we cannot remain silent when our healthy ancestors' struggles are used to justify and excuse the ongoing colonial violence that is being perpetrated and escalated today. Most Celts in the U.S. do not understand this now. Most Celts in Cairnrhá don't either. Their identity's been too stripped and they're too deep in colonized depression and addiction. There's a handful of strong Kernoic people who do understand this, but nowhere near enough. But the Celts of Erin's Isle do. That's why they're so loud about condemning racism in the U.S. and supporting countries being brutally colonized today. I suggest that all Celts listen to and learn from the Irish for leadership on this, because they are doing an incredible job. White identity is for people who have no idea who they are. It's an identity for people who've been cut off from their healthy ethnic identities and are too wounded and therefore too lazy and broken to remember them. So my Kernoic pride inoculates me against the disease of white identity. When I say I'm Kernoic, I don't just mean that I have some Kernoic blood. I mean I grew up eating Kernoic food, singing Kernoic songs. Jack is my middle name that I use for convenience because my full name is a long series of Kernoic syllables that nobody who isn't Kernoic can properly pronounce without training. I mean that Cairnrhá runs in my veins, so I don't need or want your made-up white culture or white identity because I'm a proud son of Cairnrhá. I don't need to fear or steal another culture's music or identity because I have my own beautiful music and culture running in my veins. I'm not afraid of losing my culture because of other beautiful people bringing their music and cultures. I'm afraid of losing my culture to the insatiable gaping maw of colonization that's been working to eat it for 2,000 years. It's the English who are the threat to Cairnrhá, not a handful of black or Asian people looking for a place to be safe with their families and cook us some amazing new food. My people, my God, how can you not see your enemy? They've already almost devoured you, and you're still letting them trick you into fearing your allies? I understand how lucky I am to have such a strong, intact cultural lineage. I understand that most white people don't. But that just means that your health will require you to stretch. Find whatever shreds of identity and culture you have and follow those thin breadcrumb trails back. Oh, you only know that one of your grandparents was Russian? Follow that trail. There's a whole beautiful, rich world of culture, music, and food waiting for you. Visit that land, meet it, feel that soil under your feet, walk where your ancestors walked, because that place runs in your veins. That is where your healthy identity waits, not in the cheap, nothing excuse of being white. So no, Mr. Carl. You broken white culture supremacists don't get to fucking steal the tattered bloody remains that you've left of my healthy culture to feed your disease. Back the fuck up. White culture doesn't exist because whiteness is a made-up identity, not a culture or an ethnicity. You don't get to claim my Celtic heritage or history of resistance or Italian culture or Jewish culture as evidence of your white culture. It is not. Italian heritage is not white heritage, and it's not Celtic heritage, so it's not mine. No Italian people claim me. I'm not Italian, so you don't get to insult and further destroy both my Celtic heritage and Italian heritage by smushing us together and calling us white, especially because you spent centuries telling us both that we were never white, could never be white. English people still treat the Celts whose land they stole and live on like absolute shit, and you have the gall to stand there and tell Celts that we're white now, when our land is still being ground to bloody dust under the boot heel of the real whites, the original whites, the English fucking crown. Now you want to tell me that I'm the same as English royalty, who are a bunch of absolutely repulsive, inbred, parasitic German colonizers, sucking us Celts and our land they stole dry. How fucking dare you? I will not identify with my oppressor. Keep my people's name out of your filthy mouth. I will not adopt the mantle of violence and power that you are trying to force onto me. I will not trade my humanity and honor for the woundedness and pseudo-privileges of whiteness. I've seen whiteness. I see what whiteness does every day. I see what it's doing to me now, today, here. Some of my favorite people, both friends and thinkers, happen to be German. Germans can be wonderful when they know they're German. I have no tolerance for Germans who forget that they're German, claim they're British, and occupy my homeland. Colonization is, at its heart, a disease of forgetting. It is a contagious amnesia spread by trauma. Colonization makes us forget that other people are human. And by separating us from our healthy heritage and roots, it makes us forget how to be human. So people who are called white can be great, but only when we practice remembering how to be human, which means that our identities can no longer be white. We still have white privilege. I'll always have white privilege under this system, but I don't identify as white. I'm Kernoic. That's the people who claim me and who I claim. All liberation work is the same liberation work. If you believe in indigenous sovereignty, indigenous land rights, or healing the wounds of colonization at all, then you must understand this. The English are not, have never been, and can never be British. The same way that I will never be Native American, no matter how long my line lives on Native American land. German colonizers, who are the English, can never be British, no matter how long they occupy stolen land. This will seem off topic, but it's not. I spent a decade in the bottom of a bottle. I've been clean and sober some 13 years, done a lot of work in the recovery community. I ran recovery houses, I've been a recovery coach for a long time, and I know addiction. And this man is in active addiction. I would bet he was drinking immediately before this was filmed. Almost everyone in this administration flags this way. Have you seen Kash Patel? But for this man's ideology, it makes perfect sense because he believes in white culture, which is a non-culture. It literally doesn't exist. He's not identifying as Norwegian or German or whatever he actually is. He's identifying only as a proud white, a made-up cult of power designed to keep poor people on both sides of the cult wall from recognizing ourselves as allies. So his identity is a void, a massive, gaping, insatiable maw, an unmeetable need that hounds him every second of every day of his life that he can never fill. So he takes the colonizer's drug. He drinks. Alcoholism is amnesia in a bottle. It's easy colonization in the palm of your hand. You can go out and get colonized every night of the week. You can colonize yourself to sleep and wake up with a colonizer's headache, go out and colonize yourself all over again. British troops colonizing India were so desperate to forget the horrors they were perpetrating on those people that the British had to invent the IPA, a beer with so much preservative that it could survive the boat ride from colonized Britain to colonized India. That's why IPAs are so bitter, but really, all alcohol is a bitter amnesiac to let us keep forgetting and colonizing and forgetting and colonizing again. Set it down. Claim your roots. Find your people and your healthy identity, even when it's a thin, washing away trail of breadcrumbs that leads you back to lands you've never been. That's where health is waiting for you. Aaron Gobra, Alba Gubrath, Kimri Ambith, Kernau Bisviken, Britain Bisviken, the whole world Bisviken.
I pray all of the billionaires who exploit the lower class fucking die. And they get licked down, put in the ground, dug up, and then fucking told to die again. Bitch ass fucks. Fucking you talking about. Amen.
Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! We most definitely cannot forget about the people of Sudan!
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach? Who taught you to hate yourself? from the top of your head to the soles of your feet. Before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate? You should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you?